All right, look at that. Did we actually start directly on the hour?
I believe so.
All right. Good afternoon, world at large. Welcome back to Reversing Labs webinar. We've got a cracking one for you today. We are a little ways out from Black Hat, and we are lucky enough to have three people joining us who, I don't know, dare I say a word like superstars of the security industry? Some names and faces, voices that you may recognize, some books that you may have read, all kinds of really good stuff. So without further ado, let's get it going. Matt Stevenson. And at Reversing Labs, we're continuing to bring you the top experts in the country, the industry from around the world, just everything that's interesting or secure. We get going, a little bit of housekeeping. If you have questions, please submit them through the Q&A. I'm in the Zoom. We are going to be hitting those throughout the show. So as much as everybody loves at the end, says any, and I even have a slide for that. We'd love to talk in line with our guests on anything that you've got going on. Also, we are recording, so this will be available to follow up the next couple of days. We also want to send any of the links, anything interesting that we are talking about. If there is a need for a hot link, that will be coming to you. These won't be spam emails. These will be because you wanted to. And if you love the transcript, well, there will be a transcript. Caption is, but now it's about keeping the world secure. And why we have brought these three gentlemen together. First, Derek Fisher, who we're just going to go with AppSec legend. I will let him describe any of the interesting things that have happened in the last couple of weeks. Also, Chris Hughes, co-founder and CISO at Acquia. I would dare say also AppSec legend. And last but not least, Freaky Clown. He is the co-founder and co-CEO of Syngenta, recently transplanted to these United States. So it's been a pretty interesting time, I would say, for all of you, given all of the cool stuff that you've been up to. Let's go a little deeper into what we're talking about with the books. Oh, well, wait, let's talk a little bit about us first. Yeah, we should tell you who we are and why you're here. Reversing Labs, we are the world's largest threat intelligence repository with offices in Zagreb, Croatia, Cambridge, USA. Got about 300 of us going on right now. So, we've got a few people that are doing some good things. Please check us out. The website is reversinglabs.com. All the good information you need to know there, plus some really good research, blogs, video content, as we are unleashing all of our Black Hat videos and recordings. All that stuff will be there too. Also want to remind you, for all attendees, that you can choose one of the books from any of our guests. So let's start talking about that a little bit first. Well, I guess we've already been talking about it a little bit. The books. I've had too much coffee this morning. In no particular order, Derek Fisher has recently released the software. See, it is still screwed up. This is my mistake. When I was building out this deck, I got it wrong. So if you are looking for Derek Fisher's book, it is called Application Security Program Handbook. It is excellent. It is worthy text. It is something that will bend your brain and make you feel better about what you do. Next, Chris Hughes, who wrote Software Transparency, which is another one that is just chock full of great information. And finally, Freaky Clown, How I Rob Banks and Other Such Places. I think the title of that is pretty self-explanatory. So, gentlemen, I will turn it over to you. They have heard me talk enough. Derek, let's open with yours, even though I titled it incorrectly on the slide. Tell us about the book, the whole process, what made you get it going, why do you want to do it?
No, it's okay. It's a long title, so it's easy to mess up. So yeah, I wrote the Application Security Program Handbook with the intent of really putting in one place the ideas, the concepts, the processes, the technology that is used in order to develop a secure software development lifecycle. So there's a lot there, a lot to unpack, but the primary purpose of the book is really to provide a roadmap for someone that's entering into an organization that is looking to either start a application security program or mature their application security program. And in it, you can read it from front to back, or you can kind of pick different segments out of it to really tackle some of the things that you're looking to accomplish. So I hope it's a good book. I enjoyed writing it. And I think there's a lot of good information in there. So
Well, Derek really enjoyed, or I mean, Chris really enjoyed writing it too. So that's the good news. We can all agree on these things. Would you say for this particular home, I like that word, what level of experience of knowledge do you need before this can be impactful for you? Is this a good place to take off on your journey, or do you need to be a little bit down the road?
I think you need to understand the fundamentals of software development. And that doesn't mean you need to be a software developer or an architect, but you need to have some understanding of how software gets from idea to production. And with that in mind, that kind of helps you fill in some of the gaps around how that development lifecycle is created and maintained, and then allows you to understand, okay, here's the different ways of integrating some of those security processes and technology and people into that development lifecycle. So it is written for individuals that are leaders, even project managers, developers, architects. There's enough in there for everybody.
I'm going to take a quick technical minute. We're getting notification from Vincent that my microphone is cutting in and out, so I'm going to do a quick hot swap over to something else. But the good news is, Chris, the book that you actually wrote, even though I gave Derek credit for it, let's talk about software transparency.
Yeah, definitely happy to chat about it. I will say I've read Derek's book and I really enjoyed it. I've recommended it to quite a few folks. It's an excellent book around AppSec, so definitely check that out. But the book, I wrote Software Transparency, Supply Chain Security in an Era of a Software-Driven Society. I kind of got down this path of writing the book because, we saw these incidents happening, whether it was open source software like Log4j or proprietary software like SolarWinds, for example, that were being compromised and kind of causing havoc in the ecosystem. And it got traction with the cybersecurity executive order and so on. And I was digging into the topic and I realized, wait, there's no book on this, but everyone's talking about this at all the conferences, all the events, in the industry, all this guidance coming out from different organizations, whether, on the commercial front, like CNCF and others, as well as like the federal front with NSA and DISA and NIST and so on. But there was no other. Everything I get my hands on essentially started compiling it into this book that I've now put together and put out for the industry to use. And like Derek said, I think it definitely lends itself to a practitioner who has some security experience and expertise. But that said, I tried to make it very approachable for someone that doesn't understand the topic well quite yet. Kind of laying the groundwork of how we got here, what is kind of the history of software supply chain attacks, and then building on that to where we are in the ecosystem right now with everything like the growth of open source software, kind of the development and growth of cloud native computing and services, SaaS adoption, DevSecOps, and so on, everything down into the trenches of SBOM and all the things that have been trendy lately around software supply chain security. So I hope folks really enjoy it, check it out, and let me know what you think of it. I'm happy to chat about the topics anytime.
If the booth at Black Hat, quick question for everybody. Audio better, worse?
Sounds good.
Answer.
Sounds good.
Okay, good to go. If the attendance at Chris's books actually did, thanks from all three times. The people of Vegas, the people who came to Vegas were very excited about this. Steve, man, you talk about a life's work being compiled into at least volume first compendium of these things. Tell me about this. It's a very quick process putting this together.
Yeah, so How I Rob Banks is basically a collection of anecdotes from my career. So I've been breaking into stuff for like 30 years professionally, legally and ethically. And whilst I'm well known for my digital exploits, I'm actually even more well known for my physical exploits. So this book captures all of that, and it also teaches people how to do some of the things I do, such as lockpicking and safe cracking, that sort of thing. But if you want to know what it was like for the first time I ever kidnapped someone, it's in this book. Or the time that I got asked to steal a helicopter and how that went. I can't fly a helicopter. That's going to be a clue there for that story. It's just trying to show people that security is about three different areas. It's about people, it's about technology, and it's about the physical aspects as well. And there's stories in here where big banks have had an amazing sort of digital array of security, and yet I was able to walk into their buildings and steal the computers themselves. So circumventing all of that. So that's what this book is about. It's a collection of life stories and hopefully some lessons as well. Ooh, it seems that Matt has now lost audio
Yeah, I
entirely.
think it's likely turning the microphone or something right now.
I think so.
He lost audio.
So we'll carry on without him. Hopefully we'll get some slides that are now also broken. I'm just trying to remember what is the next slide so we can just carry on.
Well, Chris, I was going to say, I queued up your book. I haven't had an opportunity to read it yet, but I do plan on taking a look at it as soon as I get some bandwidth here. But, I think one of the things about sort of kind of between the two of our books is that, we really focus on how do we ensure that the security within development is considered. And I think, I've been kind of preaching this for quite some time, is that we spend a lot of time, and historically we have spent a lot of time as an industry really focused on kind of that, as I always say, the hard outer shell. It's what we commonly call the network and perimeter, and we don't spend a lot of time on ensuring that the software that we are developing and delivering is actually built securely. And I think FC, I think that's where kind of that hard outer shell is someplace that you really focus in on, which is it can't be ignored. I think the two of them are linked tightly together. But I definitely, after hearing you explain stealing helicopters and kidnapping people, I'll definitely have to put your book on the list as well. So
yeah, thank you. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is that security of layers, right? We always in the UK we refer to this as an armadillo, right? This is how most companies are. It's a nice hard outer shell, but once you get past that, it's all soft and gooey in the middle, and you can just go anywhere. And that's what I take advantage of as both an ethical hacker, like digitally breaking in. I get through that perimeter. I can move around your network as you need. Same with physical. I can get past that initial perimeter. And once you're in, everyone just assumes that you're supposed to be there, and you can do the most incredible things.
Yeah, the ironic part about what you both are saying there is, like, when you look at the software supply chain concept, and especially around open source software, malicious actors realize rather than target a single organization, they can just target a widely used, like, open source software package, for example. Someone pulls it in, welcomes them into the environment with not much rigor or governance around that, and then here we are. So yeah, it's definitely, I think all three topics very, very closely relate to one another.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things, I have a bit of a bugbear around open source software. It's like, it's really good and I love it. But whilst you can go and look at it, I bet most people never look at any code. And it's like, is that more secure than running closed source software? Well, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, everyone uses the phrase, under enough eyeballs, all bugs are shallow, but we don't have enough eyeballs. The eyeballs aren't looking, so...
Yeah, from my perspective, when I'm like sort of touching on the pen testing and the bug bounty side, is most people avoid all of the big named things because they go, well, everyone's already looked at that already. Like, there's no point in me wasting my time. And yet we still have massive vulnerabilities that are being found in really common things that have been around for like 20 years, So you just have to look at everything, and stuff like, what ReversingLabs are doing with their SBOM sort of supply chain checking of all of those areas of software. It's brilliant.
Look at that. And I think the other thing, Chris, I don't know if you touch on this in your book. I'm sure you probably do, but the majority of open source software is not even actually used. Like, you bundle in these packages into your end product, and the majority of it's not used. I mean, and this, I'm just speaking from my experience in software development, security, but we find vulnerabilities in third-party open source software, and the first thing developer says is, well, we're not calling that function, or we're not using that functionality. And it's like, okay, well, why is it there? And so I think that's also the challenge, is that we intentionally, well, I don't want to say intentionally, but our attack surface increases as we package in these open source software for no payout. There's no benefit to it. So
Yeah, I see, real quick comment on that. Definitely touch on this. And I think that, you talk about this in your book is like kind of reducing the friction between development and security, for example. We kind of have a habit of throwing toil and noise over the fence to the development team and saying, hey, we have 1,038 findings. We need you to kind of keep yourself innocent on all these. And that's why we're seeing, innovative software, security suppliers, I should say, vendors, provide things around reachability or actually invocation, or is it actually exploitable, or is it known to be exploited, or is it probably to be exploited? For example, looking at things like EPSS and so on, probable to be exploited, I should say. So yeah, there's definitely a lot to that in terms of, sifting through the noise to get through to what, what really has some risk to it and what should we be focusing on. Yeah.
So you guys have all mentioned software supply chain security as well as SBOM. How deep, when you say you have to look at everything, when it comes to going that type of deep dive, I think Chris, you and I talked about this in Vegas, FC, you and I talked about this. Is it time? Is it budget? Is it personnel? Like, what are the limiting factors? And like, at what point do you make a decision? Like, that's as far as we can go right now with what we have available.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick and just say it's yes to all of the above, but the problem is every organization has their different organizational constraints, whether it's different, levels of cybersecurity expertise, different staffing levels, different funding and budgetary restrictions, for example, or speed to market. If you're a small startup, you're trying to get to the market faster. You maybe don't, this isn't your primary focus at this point of your maturity journey in terms of security. And so definitely it's like a bit of all those things, and it depends on the organization. But I will say, looking into the data, it seems that, what I was able to find is 6 out of 7 vulnerabilities are actually intransitive dependencies. So you do need to look a little bit deeper. But the problem is it's kind of a turtles all the way down problem where, it just kind of keeps going infinitely. And it can be really hard to get to the bottom of it and get the handle on it, especially if you, like I said, you have limited budget, limited resources, limited staffing. You're not trying to drag development and, delivery to a halt, for example.
Do we know where Turtles All the Way Down came from? I would like to give him or her credit for creating it. It's still just one of the funniest but most relevant analogies.
It's from Terry Pratchett, I believe.
Yeah, it's that the world is. I'll take a stab at this, but because I was thinking about it as Chris said, it's because there was the old theory that the world was standing on the backs of elephants that were standing on turtles, and then underneath the turtles were more turtles and more turtles, and it just never ended.
Yeah. All right. See what happens when you bring together 3 absolute experts like this? The universes of mysteries explained. Let's dig into Vegas. You guys, I know FC, you did some time at I think all 3 shows, if I recall.
Yes, I did.
Derek, Chris, what about you two?
I'll make it short and sweet here. I was only a Black Hat, and I did not spend a lot of time except for on the floor, vendor floor for a day. So I did, outside of that, I did not spend a whole lot of time. So I was kind of bumming out. So.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I definitely, primarily spent my time at the Black Hat event, and obviously side conversations and coffees and dinners and stuff were great conversations, but spent a good amount of time walking the floor, just getting a feel for the landscape. Definitely some themes that stuck out is everyone apparently is using AI now in their product or platform. And they're very excited to tell us about that. Also, though, I did see some other trends, like, people kind of pitching more of a platform angle, knowing that there may be some economic headwinds or consolidation around tooling and technologies, maybe pushing for, not necessarily best of breed, but kind of a consolidated approach to a platform perspective. And then honestly, walking around the startup city, I saw, I can't even remember, there was at least 10 like startups oriented around software supply chain security. So I think that's kind of a market validation to this is a hot area, for example, in terms of investment in startups and stuff. So it was really cool to see.
FC, what about you? Stick with Black Hat first, and then we can dig into when you went to the more, let's say, esoteric things evolved that week.
So Black Hat was really good for me. I did a couple of book signings there. Yours was the largest one that I did. And yeah, it's fantastic to come to such a massive event and have a look at kind of like a slice across the industry, like who is doing what, who is basically lying, who's making stuff up, who's doing really good things. And that's something I'm very keen to shout about is when I see snake oil, I like to talk about it. And there was probably a large amount there. So it is always good to sort of see those technologies and those vendors that are doing that. But it's also for me, a lot of these conferences are about meeting people, what they're doing, how they feel about things, because people are always going to be the best way to solve any security issue. So I spend a lot of time talking to people at these conferences rather than slating all the vendors or going around and just trying to get the swag. And the same happens for, you know, sort of DEF CON and BSides Vegas as well. Have we lost Matt again? In which case I'll talk about DEF CON as well.
Well, hey, FC, I was going to ask you, I mean,
Yeah.
did you see like do you see like an increase in the snake oil, or is it, kind of a steady percentage that you see?
I would say so over the years, I've been to many of these events, been to many in the UK. We have InfoSec as well, which is very similar, and I would say at least 75% is just made up crap. It really is. It's just they take keywords and they throw the marketing budget at it. And then when you start to ask them, like, how does this work? Okay, tell me about how you're using a large language model for this bit. Like, how is it actually happening? And almost always you'll get like, well, you'll have to ask one of our technical people. And
I do recall in our session, you wiggling your fingers at the audience and referring to the blinky boxes that you will see everywhere.
Exactly. Yeah. And there are some great blinky boxes out there that do some amazing things, but if you take them like, just straight off the shelf and put them into your network, it's not going to fit your network out of the box. You have to configure it correctly. Otherwise it's just not going to help you. So that's my take on what I saw at Black Hat.
Yeah, I was going to add real quick. I did see, and honestly, I'm surprised this even gets done in a setting where you have a lot of cybersecurity professionals. But I saw several companies using phrases like "eliminate cyber risk" or "zero false positives," and it's like anyone who's worked in cyber knows like that's just not practical. Like I don't know why you would even use that kind of terminology.
I think we'd all be out of a job, right?
Yeah. There's some kind of like disconnect, some sort of dissonance between what we as cyber professionals are saying and what the marketing teams are doing, and you're just like, what are you saying that for? And I'm sure there's plenty of companies in there that are actually doing really good stuff. It's just they need to stab the marketers or something.
Well, and I'm sure that all three of you have, just over the course of your career, successfully adopted that absolutism approach, and it's just 100% zero guaranteed. Nope, no problem.
No, yeah, you have to remember, right? So from my perspective as a pen tester, I'm trying to find a way into your systems, right? And that's what criminals are doing. And no matter how much you spend on things, no matter how well configured everything is in your network, you are 1 0 day away from being owned. That's it. So tomorrow, someone could come along and completely destroy all of the hard work that you've done.
Did any of you think that what do they call it, the Sphere would get hacked? I know that they've had some issues with the weather.
Absolutely
so
not.
I took an Uber and the woman that was driving, her cousin or some relative was in cybersecurity, and he mentioned that they turned it off for DEF CON because they were afraid of some. I don't know. I didn't vet that information. That's just what I heard.
Yeah. So I'm really lucky that I live in Las Vegas now, and the Sphere has been on for a good couple of months, and they've been testing it. You see it, like, we drive past it every now and again. It's not really on our side of the town, but we do drive past it, and throughout those months we've been seeing like them test all the different types of displays. So there's Halloween ones, there's Christmas ones, there's test patterns, and it was pretty obvious, like, if you're making that, it is like air gapped from the internet, right? You're not going to do that. So I was under no impression that it would ever get hacked, but the number of accounts in Vegas that are like just Las Vegas sort of local accounts that were like, oh my God, it's been hacked by the hackers because it's now showing like, Christmas scenes and stuff. It's like, no, they've just been testing it, and it's going to be tested for a little bit longer. But they did have some issues with the rain. So
I just real quick, I went to check into my hotel, not to throw the name of the hotel out there. I won't throw it out there, but their computers were down. And I was like, son of a, who the hell did this? Like
it happens. A lot of people that come to these events are not really hackers and those that are really hackers, there's very few criminal hackers that are going to do this. So I think it's a nice sort of legend to have. But I had no illusion that it would ever be attacked.
I was staying at one of the hotels a few years back, and I was on like the 35th floor, and one of the video screens BSides while I was on like the 30th floor. And in my head, it was like, what is about to happen here? And fortunately, no issues on that. All right, well, FC, this one's going to be primarily for you then. You are a veteran of many BSides, but I don't think you've done Vegas before, and DEF CON also. These two being, I'd say, less corporate than Black Hat, although I heard a little grumblings about how things are heading in some directions. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say how they're ranked for people that don't know is there's Black Hat, which is corporate, DEF CON, which is technical, and not too corporate, and then you have BSides, which is the community-driven events. So I stopped into the BSides Las Vegas event. That was at a different hotel. It's not on the Strip, and that was great. There were loads of like community-based talks, trying to get people into the industry, that sort of level. Then I was at DEF CON. I was the judge at the social engineering vishing competition, which took place over that weekend. Actually, it takes place over a month or so because we have to do OSINT reports, and then there's like planning reports, and then there's the actual live calls that they do on the day. And we were judging that. So I was there for a fair bit of that conference. And there is some amazing stuff. I bumped into so many big names in cybersecurity that it's like you literally can't walk 10 feet without bumping into someone famous. And you're like, oh my God, like this is incredible, like meeting this person. So you were going to say?
I was going to say, much like getting to meet the three of you and then bringing you all together on one show.
Yeah. It was quite nice at Black Hat, actually. We were sat upstairs of the ReversingLabs thing, and then Bruce Schneier comes running up the stairs just to say hello. So that was quite nice. Gave us signed copies of his book, which is just a bit interesting. So.
Returning to Black Hat, and this would be for all three of you. Chris, you touched on how in Startup Alley there were some interesting SSCS companies. As you all have attended these shows over the years, and things have changed. It's like, oh my God, we're the greatest virtual. Then we're the greatest. Like you were saying about AI, they're all best in class. So everybody is tied for first.
Yeah.
As you have seen the evolution of technology, endpoint was the hottest thing for a while, and then AI moved in, kind of changed some things there. AI is a really big deal. What are you seeing in the evolution of these things? Obviously, SBOM is a big deal. SSCS is a big deal. Anything else catching your eye? Platform's another thing that you mentioned, that you're just looking around and thinking, man, this one's almost ready. The dough has risen. It's almost time to start baking.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective on the software supply chain front, looking at some of the companies there, everyone's kind of, it's kind of a testament to how complicated the attack surface is in terms of software supply chain security. You had people who are focused on SBOM and SBOM management. You had people who are focusing on securing the CI/CD process and platform. People who are worried about, developer committing secrets, for example. There's a whole myriad of activities, third-party risk management in managing your SaaS providers and software supply chain attack vectors from that angle. So there's just so many angles that you have to try to cover from the modern attack surface. And then to FC's point, he's only looking for that needle in the haystack, and it's just a matter of time until it happens. So I think it's kind of a testament to how complex the attack surface is, how many things people are trying to cover or mitigate themselves against, and then just, trying to make sense of it all and put together a comprehensive security program, honestly.
Derek, what about you? You've written an authoritative book on application security. How much of that did you see walking around? Or did you even have a chance because it was so big and so full?
No, I did. And I think, I'll kind of echo something that Chris mentioned earlier, and that really comes down to like the exploitability. I think that's going to be the new kind of hotness with software security, because we don't have any issues finding vulnerabilities. We can find vulnerabilities all day, all night. And, and I'm talking specifically around, software development security, but, we can find vulnerabilities all day and all night. Where I think, the challenges are from a secure software development perspective is that how do we give actionable information to the developers to say, here are the things that you need to focus on. And I think exploitability is one of those things, but I also think that if we can tie that to risk you know, and say, here's the risk of the organization, here's the exploitability in these products that, you know, have high risk. Well, those are the ones that we need to focus our team on. So anybody that's moving into that direction of, you know, the observability, the exploitability, reachability, those abilities, I think, are going to be the ones that are going to kind of rise to the top. There are some vendors that are working on that, and I think those are the ones that are going to kind of be at least pretty hot for the next couple of years.
Did you just use the word ilities? After
Yeah,
I
you know, I had to
heard that.
reach way back. That's a deep cut there. I had to reach way back on that one. I don't know if you're not familiar with that term. I mean, that's a term that we used to use in software development. So yeah.
I'm going to go get custom T-shirts made for each of you, riffing on the Beastie Boys' first album, and we're going to call it "License to Ility."
Abilities, yeah, there you go. License to abilities.
FC, you know, you broke out the differences among BSides, Black Hat, and DEF CON. Going from Black Hat, which bright lights, big Vegas, DEF CON, more practitioner focused, wandering around the villages. Any vibe you were catching that was particularly made you stop and say, that's cool?
Yeah, I think the coolest thing that I saw at all of DEF CON, and it is huge, it's probably as big as Black Hat, it's just spread over like 4 hotels, it's massive. The coolest thing I saw was the first ever live hacking CTF on a satellite that's actually in orbit. So they had actually worked with the university to get a satellite up into space, and it was orbiting around, and people were trying to hack it as it went round, and that came with so many technical difficulties, because obviously as it orbits around, you only get like a 15-20 minute window to upload your code, download code, and sort of try to attack it, because obviously then it goes out of your line of sight and then you have to wait for the thing to come back. So this was the first one that had ever been done, and because of the lifetime of the satellite, it's only going to be up there for another year. So we might get to do it again at the next DEF CON. And I think it was like a $50,000 prize. Like it wasn't a small CCF. That was one of the coolest things I think I saw across all of DEF CON, actually.
Nice. So looking forward to what's coming next. You know, we're through the silly season. Everybody's going back to school. Federal budget season's about to end, new things starting up for everybody. What are each of you looking forward to? What's coming at you that's got you interested, excited? Aside from the recurring revenue from your massively top-selling books.
I'll jump in first. You know, for me, I'm excited to see vendors continue to mature their offerings. I think that, you know, like some of the economic pressure is going to kind of sift out some of the weaker performing companies and really let the cream rise to the top in terms of platforms and vendors and stuff like that. And I actually share the excitement that that Derek had around reachability, exploitability, et cetera. As I read, you know, deeper and deeper into the topic and wrote the book on software supply chain, I realized that what we do in terms of it as an industry for vulnerability management is fundamentally flawed. And I haven't shared this publicly quite yet until now, but I'm actually writing a second book on modernizing vulnerability management, because I just realized it's broken and we need to do better. There's too much noise, you know, and we got to do better as an industry. So for me, that's, you know, really exciting to see some of the things coming out around platforms and vendors, as well as, you know, efforts like EPSS, the CISA known exploited vulnerability list, and things of that nature really have my attention at the moment.
CISA, the magic words. Derek, what about you? What's coming down the pike for you that looks interesting and worthy at your attention?
Yeah, I'm certainly interested, Chris, in the vulnerability management, because I would totally agree with that, which is where I think, you know, we need to focus on the, you know, the exploitability, the reachability, that stuff, because I think we, you know, if you go into an organization and you talk about vulnerability management, it's like, well, we do all high criticals, right? That's what we focus on, and it's just it's a shotgun approach of like, just get rid of all the high criticals, and honestly, that's probably not, you know, we all know that that's not the right direction to go. But I do think that there's going to be, or there should be a drive to really push for tool consolidation. One of the issues that, you know, I've run into in my time in this space is that, you know, again, we can find vulnerabilities all day. Are we finding the right ones? Are we doing it, you know, correctly? I've often said to a lot of the vendors that I work with is that I can create a application security program a million different ways. It doesn't have to include your tools. It doesn't have to include any tools. It could be, you know, any flavor that we choose here. And I think that, you know, we've kind of, in at least again in the application security space, the secure SDLC space, it's, you know, we've followed suit with a lot of our peer teams where it's get more tools, get more funding, implement, you know, more blinky boxes. But that's not the, you know, that's really not the core competency of application security. So I think tool consolidation is going to be something that is going to be big on the horizon here. So
FC Sygenta has a lot of fingers and a lot of pies, and we will get to that momentarily. So when I ask you, looking down the road, you also have the incredible good fortune to have co-founded a partner with your brilliant wife. So
yes.
You've got multiple eyes out on these things. What's got yours and Sygenta's attention?
So I actually agree with Derek and Chris, what they've said about you know, all of those things. But I think the thing that I'm actually genuinely looking really forward to is, as a industry, maturing with AI and how we see it and how we use it, right? So at the moment, it's a new toy. It's like, oh my God, this is great. We can do all these crazy things with. And everyone's like panicking because they're like, oh my God, it's going to take my job. Well, it's probably not. You have to, what I'm waiting for is everyone to suddenly realize that it is just another tool. It's another force multiplier that we can leverage to do our jobs better and faster and more accurately. So that's what I'm really excited about, is like going from this kid with a new toy to an adult that says, okay, I can use this for good, and here's how we now use it properly as a force multiplier.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that real quick. You know, I think that I agree with him, and I think that we're going to see it really lean into some of these areas around reachability, exploitability, things like that. And then also, you know, we've been talking for years now about the cybersecurity workforce woes that we have in our industry, and like we know that we can't simply hire our way out of this problem. And AI has some promising potential to help us like kind of close the gap on what we know we need to do, but what we have the resources to do. So I'm really excited to see that kind of mature too.
Yeah, I think it's really important to see that GCHQ, who's like the UK equivalent of like the NSA over there, they recently put out a thing saying AI is now at the stage where it could replace the very, very lowest analyst in their company. That it's not doing all of the things all of the way. And this is, you know, they've obviously got their own systems in there. So I think we're a long way from that. It's just, it's another tool that we can leverage.
It does speak to the evolution of the industry that we made it to the 36-minute mark before anyone used the word gap. But at least, Chris, you didn't say the cyber skills gap. I'm curious, though, your comments is that we can't hire our way out of this with, you know, the development of AI, and I'm sure this is a topic that's been beaten to death. But the number that everybody remembers was, what was it, 3.5 million by 2023 from Gartner a few years ago. How has that changed?
Yeah, I mean, that number, if I'm not mistaken, it's actually cited from an organization known as ISC Square. That's actually a cybersecurity credentialing company. So it's obviously,
right.
You know, maybe there's a bit of a COI in the sense that they're marketing quite this gap that they can solve via their credentialing. But, you know, I do agree that we definitely have this gap in the workforce. And, you know, I teach a couple of different universities. You know, I'm a big proponent of non-traditional education in terms of cybersecurity as well, like virtualized learning, on-the-job training, internships, you know, just getting in there and breaking things, like FC talked about how he's kind of navigated that journey too. So I think we need to make a lot of changes to how we hire and staff in the cybersecurity domain, for example, people moving into the career field from different career fields and so on. But I don't think we'll fully ever get there just by hiring our way out of it. We need to look to efficiencies, like things on exploitability and reachability, and obviously leveraging tools that can help automate things like AI. So I think it's going to be a combination of all these things that are really going to help us kind of close the gaps that we know we have in terms of our cybersecurity programs and the risks that we face as organizations.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that, actually. So previously, before starting Sygenta, I was the head of offensive cyber research for Raytheon, a huge American defense firm. And we would try and hire people straight out of university. And there is a massive, I'm going to use it, sorry, Matt, there's a massive gap in
There it is.
coming out of universities, right? So there are loads of people that have loads of skills and loads of certificates, but they don't have that foundational knowledge that you need in order to do some of these really high-tech jobs. Because, you know, I interviewed hundreds of people, and some of them just couldn't do the basic fundamental things. They didn't understand, like even down down to binary or assembly. Like if you're going for a super technical job, you need those skills. You can't just be like, well, I did a university course, so therefore I'm skilled now. It's like you need that hands-on to everything you do, otherwise you're not going to get there. And that doesn't matter how many people we get in. We could get 3.9 million people, but if they're all shit at their jobs, what's the point, right? We need to educate them much better.
I want to add real quick, Derek, and I'll kick it over to you, is like, I had to share a controversial opinion at dinner at Black Hat, and mine was actually that the soft skills, in my opinion, do more for your career field with it. You're more for your career within cybersecurity than the technical skills. Not that you don't need to know them, and that's not important. But when you're dealing with personalities and organizational politics and so on, being able to communicate, storytell, build rapport, build trust, like that stuff is intangible.
Yeah, I mean, my wife talks to this all the time, the soft skills on how you deal with people. And depending on the role, you need that, right? We had some super technical people that we just basically kept in a skiff with no windows, and you never let them touch anyone else. And then you have the people with the soft skills to be a translator really between those people and the next layer up. So yeah, depending on your role, you're going to need soft skills, and it will massively help your career, like you say.
Yeah, and I'll just add, because education's kind of near and dear to my heart. I teach at university here in Philadelphia, and I have a lot of courses online, and I'm still building a lot of courses as well. But I think when I talk to some of the students in my class, and they're coming back to the certification thing. I mean, there's a lot of students that the first question is, well, which certification should I get? And it's like, well, unfortunately, I think we kind of built this catch-22 where like you need certs to get a job, but the certs aren't really giving you the education that you need. Because to be honest, like any of us could sit down and pass a certification with enough with enough reading and testing. In fact, I'm sure that Chris, FC, and myself. I mean, I haven't taken a certification exam in a long time, but I'm pretty sure I could sit down and take and pass one pretty easily. So maybe not easily, but the concept there is that it doesn't take much effort to get a certification. Those skills of understanding how technology works and how software is built and deployed and maintained and sunset, all those things are skills that you're not going to learn in necessarily in one course in a university or an online course or something like that. So that's I think those, when I'm usually looking for people for application security, knowing security is great. If you know software development, way better. And those soft skills as well. I mean, those are what's going to kind of propel you in your career, is knowing how to deal with people, navigate structure, and be able to communicate. Those things are again things that are not necessarily technical, but desperately needed.
And not to throw another nuance, but I actually agree with Derek. I've seen tremendous success with people coming from the software development background moving into security, because they understand how software is written, how it's developed, how it's produced, and they can communicate with the development peers with a bit more empathy than some of traditional security people who have never written software, for example. And not only that, but we're seeing increasingly infrastructure as code, compliance as code, the codification of everything is also another kind of driver of that. So definitely shout out to the development folks that want to make a jump to security. We welcome you.
Yeah, and I think it's also important for those that are in development, if they move over to the security space, they can then talk to the development team in the same language, right? Because like you said, they can empathize with the development teams, but more importantly, they can talk technical with them. They understand how software gets packaged and how it gets delivered, and I think that's having those conversations builds that trust between the sides.
Yeah, I think every time I've done a pen test for a large company, the conversations I have with the developers always lead to, well, sort of they know more of the security issues than the security team, because they're working out how, like, oh, actually I do this all the time, but I don't think that's a good idea. I shouldn't be doing that, but no one's told me I shouldn't. So they see the bigger picture from the inside, whereas security teams generally, they're a little bit blindsided. They can only see sort of one side of it.
All right. So we're about to get into shameless plugs, but before we do that, and I will first can ask this one way, but I think I changed my mind. For all three of you, if you want to each take it one-on-one, or just three of you just beat this to death, what do you think is the most difficult issue your respective customers are facing right now? And how do you feel about how long that's going to be the biggest issue until the next big issue happens? Like, what's the life cycle on the biggest problem people are dealing?
I'll jump in. I think it's just the complexity of the modern digital landscape and the attack surface that we have to get our hands around as an organization, or as an industry, whatever, however you want to frame it. But things are getting increasingly complex, not more simple, and that makes it really difficult to try to get our hands around things from a risk management perspective, and then try to quantify that or communicate in a way that our business peers and leadership can understand to make the appropriate investments and so on. And then just having the level of resources, staffing, tooling, et cetera, and bringing it all together for a comprehensive security program is incredibly challenging. And that's why, you see CISOs kind of fizzle out in a lot of cases. It's just a demanding career field with a lot to try to keep a handle on. Spoken as a CISO. FC?
For me, the biggest problems I see are twofold. One is I always have a conversation with our clients about the lexicon of terminology, right? They will come to me and be like, hey, we're like a 10-man startup and we need a red team. It's like, you are not needing a red team right now. You need like maybe a VA at best, like trying to educate our clients on what the correct terms are and what they need. That's always like a big challenge. The other challenge is knowing what they have, right? We do a lot of asset discovery because they're like, oh, we've got this like one website and we've got like maybe a mail server. And it's like, oh, but we've also got these 35 other websites that our developers keep spinning up. So trying to get them to understand what they actually have and the language to use around it is probably our biggest deal that we spend a lot of time on.
It's back to communication and adding soft skills to the hard skills.
Yes, exactly.
Derek, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll just kind of reiterate something I said earlier. Is just that, I think the biggest challenges that at least the individuals that I work with have is that, we're just handing them piles of crap, in terms of vulnerabilities. And I think there needs to come a time where we get to a point like, okay, we need to skim off the signal from the noise and provide just the signal with actionable remediation, and we're a ways away from that, especially as we continue to go to these conferences and get bombarded by salespeople with the best in breed tools. Some point we need to cut off the finding of new vulnerabilities and getting to more actionable vulnerabilities that we can pass on to our developers.
Yeah, resolution. Stop handing people piles of crap! Exclamation point.
Yeah, during our pen tests, we try to help the client see the root cause of as many issues as we can, because we can give them 170 vulnerabilities that we found in their application, but maybe it's the underlying framework, or maybe it's the developers have no understanding about sort of validation on what they're doing there. So maybe if you do that and you fix that, you'll fix all of these other problems. And I think that's basically what we're trying to say here is look at the bigger picture. Don't just get drowned in vulnerabilities.
Well, as we said earlier, we just make that pitch. It's 100% guaranteed, zero vulnerabilities. We're good.
Yeah.
All right. Shameless plugs. The three of you are all very interesting people with varied careers. You've done some really interesting stuff. You are continuing to do it. Let's look at the future. And FC, since you're at the top of my box of faces I'm looking at, we're going to start with you. Social media plugs. Tell us a little bit about Sygenta. You got anything new coming up? Blah, blah, blah.
Okay, so Sygenta is a cybersecurity consultancy firm. We were originally based in the UK, but now we are here in the US. We've just incorporated Sygenta US over here, and we are available on Twitter under Sygenta HQ. You can follow me
on
personally. Oh, sorry. Twitter, X Twitter. Is that what we're now calling it? X Twitter?
Yeah.
So We're available on there under @Sygenta HQ. You can follow me personally @_FreakyClown_. We also have YouTube channels. My wife and I run those as well. So Mr. Freaky Clown and Dr. Jessica Barker.
Chris, tell us what's happening with Acquia, with the books. You got any speaking engagements coming up, appearances, any cool stuff?
Yeah, definitely. Like him, I run a cybersecurity consulting firm named Acquia. We're focused on, definitely predominantly the federal sector in terms of federal agencies and federally adjacent companies and things like that, but work with the private sector as well. A lot of areas around cloud native computing, cloud environments, Kubernetes, containers, software supply chain security, things of that nature. So definitely check us out at aqua.us. Outside of that, I'm working on a second book, like I talked about, modernizing vulnerability management, just trying to really bring some light to how broken things are in our ecosystem. I host a podcast called Resilient Cyber, where I stream every Friday to LinkedIn Live, as well as YouTube and the podcast outlets where you can, typically find any kind of podcast. So definitely feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn at Chris Hughes or Resilient Cyber on X. And thanks for Freaky Clown going first, because I would have jacked that up too. Outside of that, I'm happy to chat about these topics anytime. So feel free to reach out for sure.
Derek, you've got some interesting things happening in your world as well. So tell the good people where they can find you.
I have not started my cyber consultancy yet, so but you can but you can find me on Securely Built on YouTube, securilybuilt.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I have the Application Security Program Handbook, as well as a children's book series on cybersecurity that I wrote. That's all three of those books have been released. I'm actually working on a—
Wait.
Yeah, I was going to say, we need more information about this. Children's books on—
We're at 51 minutes, and that's the first time we hear about this?
So yeah, it's the series is called Alicia Connected, but it's a book series about for 6 to 9 or 6 to 10 year old kids, for not to derail too much here, but we all know, especially those of us that have children, that technology is in their hands at an early age. Think that we especially in the cyberspace know how that can go awry pretty quickly. The books were designed to kind of help parents and kids kind of understand, not in a preachy way, but in a story form, how to hopefully do good things with technology. So yeah, you can find that on Amazon. What else? I do have a lot of training modules online, so you can obviously find me out on some of the training platforms that are out there, and follow me on LinkedIn. Feel free to contact me there. I'm always willing to chat. So,
well, I know for one, I'm looking forward to FC's next book, which will be targeted at the 6 to 10 year old market, written by Freaky Clown. Yeah. Because that should go over pretty well.
Kubernetes for kindergarten or something.
All right, parting shots, gentlemen. We had to fight through some technical issues, for which I am eternally grateful that each of you have bubbling, sparkling personalities while I'm yelling at my headphones that weren't working. So one last thing before we get out of here. Whoever wants to go first, grab it.
I think we need to take a moment to appreciate just how dapper Derek looks in this photo on this. Like, what? I need to bring my A game next time.
Yeah, that's normally it's jeans and t-shirts or something like that, but every now and then you might spot me in a suit. So
and let it be said, FC did call out our audience at his live session at Black Hat because none of them had really good sneakers on, and he did use the term "bring your A game."
I'll say for mine real quick. I have 4 kids, so actually just purchased Derek's book while we're here chatting. I'm going to pick that up and definitely check that out and have some of my kids give it a read. So we talked about the workforce and such. I mean, there's no better place to start than children and help them understand the perils of digital society that we all live in now.
That might be the best shameless plug ever. The fact that someone actually announced in the show that they had bought something because of a shameless plug.
I appreciate that. Well,
Derek, take us home, man.
Yeah, like I always have kind of said with the kids books, and I normally say this in security groups, is like, when we talk about shift left, it doesn't get any more left than the 6 to 9 year olds. So but yeah, that's it.
Well, they're also more often than not the ones who cause the boom, so shifting left of the boom, probably a good idea.
Yep.
I kid, I love kids. I am one myself. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. Dear listeners, also reminding you again that for all attendees, each of you gets a book of your choosing from Freaky Clown, Chris Hughes, or Derek Fisher. They are all equally excellent. So please accept our gift of one of them for free, but then go buy the other ones. And if you have kids, or if you know someone who has kids, or yeah, even if you don't, you should get the children's books too, and just leave them in like dentist office and places where they can read them, because
I do that all the time.
that's the definition of Johnny Appleseed, this stuff, man. Get the knowledge out there so people can access it. All right, that is it for today's edition. Thank you, everyone, for putting up with some of the technical glitches and the audio problems, the joys of working out of the basement of a hotel surrounded by concrete and steel. Hope you stuck around for it, because these are some of the best in the industry, and we're willing to share all of their thoughts. For all the information that's good in the world of cybersecurity, make sure you come looking for us at Reversing Labs. Mothership is reversinglabs.com. We are also, and just like these three, quite active on LinkedIn. A lot of good stuff on YouTube. We have 2 podcasts that are definitely on YouTube and across all the other platforms. There is Conversing Labs, hosted by Paula Roberts, and Reversing Glass, hosted by Matt Rose. They are both very, very cool. And X, if it's still around, yeah, I mean, we're out there. We're at Reversing Labs. It's not that hard to find. My name is Matt Stevenson. You can find me at PacMatt73 across all the things. Y'all got a lot of books to read, and then more to get after that you could read to your kids. So FC, Chris, Derek, thank you guys so much. I know y'all are very busy, especially taking time to go to Vegas. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
All right, everybody else, please go check out their stuff. Go check out our stuff. Go check out other people's stuff, just to make the world a little more safe, a little more secure. Until then, we will see you next time. That awkward moment.